Hello students, welcome back to Navigate Educator channel. So now let's move on to the unit number 1, another concept which is called nature of matter. Anything which has a mass occupy the space is called matter. So matter it has been mass and occupying the space. Okay, so example book, water, air, pencil, all living things, these all have a mass and it will occupying the space. Okay, next time, sound, thoughts, these are all not consist of a mass and they do not have any kind of a space, they do not acquire the any kind of a space. Other material things which has a mass and it will occupy the space. And matter it is classified into two types: physical classification and chemical classification. Physical classification solid, liquid, gases, and chemical classification pure substances, mixture, in a pure element and compound, in a element metal, non-metal, metalloid, mixture, in that homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. These are the classification of matter. Now let's move on to the physical classification of matter. In the physical classification of matter, solid, liquid, and gases. In a solid, the particles are held very close to each other and they not much freedom of that solid material, and they have a definite shape and a definite volume, and there is a no movement of the particles in a solid. In the case of a liquid, the particles are close to each other but they can move around. They can move around in a particular beaker, and they have a definite volume but not a definite shape. Definite volume but not a definite shape. But they can take a shape of the container in which they are placed. Okay, if you pour into the beaker, it will take a shape of the beaker. If you pour into the uh, another container, it will occupy the shape of the beaker. Okay, it doesn't have any kind of a definite shape. But in the case of gases, here the gases, the particles are too far. There is a huge movement of the particles, and the particles are easy and there is a fast movement. And next, the gases have a neither definite volume and neither definite shape. Definite volume and definite shape. They can completely occupy the container which they are placed into the volumetric cylinder or any kind of a jar. Okay. So now next, change in a state of matter. So these solid, liquid, gases we can change their matter. Okay. So now solid further converted into a liquid with the help of heat. Further, if you heat to the liquid it become a gases. So when you provide a 0 degree Celsius or a cooling condition, the gases it become a liquid, and this further liquid it become a solid. Okay. So now this is the change in a state of the matter. The best example is called a cube. Ice cube. So ice cube when you provide a heat and the ice cube it become a water. So now the water further, if you provide heat, the water it become a gas. Okay, so now this is the, when you providing the heat, these solid, liquid and gases, the state of a matter, it will occur. Chemical classification of matter. In a physical classification of matter, when we observing that only change in the state of matter, in a chemical classification we are focusing on a composition of the substances. Example, glucose. The glucose is a composition of a carbon and hydrogen and oxygen. C6H12O6. O6. This is the composition of the glucose. In that pure substances mixture, in a pure element and compound mixture, homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. So now these are the examples: element, oxygen, hydrogen, iron. Another, there are further different kind of elements are there. Compound, example, water, table salt, ammonia. Homogeneous mixture, salt water, mouthwash, all alloys. Heterogeneous mixture, pizza, Italian salad and solid waste dump. These are the different kind of examples. Let's move on to the pure substances. Pure substances is made of only one type of atom or molecules are called pure substances. The gold metal, copper wire, sugar, salt, hydrogen gas, diamond, these are called a pure substances. And here oxygen, this oxygen cylinder is a consist of only one type of atoms, which is called a oxygen. Okay, so now gold metal, here the gold metal is a consist of only one atom, which is called a gold. Okay, that is called a pure substances. Pure substances, they have a properties. They have made only one type of atom or molecule, is called pure substances. It has a homogeneous nature. Homogeneous nature, I mean, here the combination of atom or molecule mixed definite ratio and do not contain, do not change their identity. Do not change their identity. So now this homogeneous nature, I mean, these are the substances completely mixed and they do not have any kind of layers. Okay, they do not have lose their identity, even though they are, if they are mixed. Example, NaCl, which is presented in a water. So now it become a NaCl solution. I mean salt solution. So now the salt solution, it does not lose their any kind of identity. And the next one, fixed composition. The fixed composition, example, H2O. So now H2O atomic hydrogen atomic weight, it is 1, and the number of the hydrogen atom is 2, plus atomic weight of the oxygen is 16 into only 1 oxygen. So 2 into 16, I mean 16, total 18. Okay, so now 2 raised to 18, 2 ones are 2 6 are. So 2 8s are 2 8s are. Okay, 1 is to 8. This 1 is to 8, we can't change their ratios. Okay, it is a fixed ratio of the water. So like that, C6 H12 O6. So glucose chemical formula. It cannot change their shape. I mean, they cannot change their composition. 1 is to 2 is to 1. Okay, and pure substances we cannot separate it by the physical method. Okay, so NaCl we cannot separate it with the help of a physical method, in the sense with a hand or with the help of a filter. We can't change their shape. And example here, another example, the hydrogen and oxygen cannot separate it after physical method. See, hydrogen and oxygen, these are two are gases. These two are combined to form a water. So now water we cannot separate it with the help of a physical method. Let's move on to the element. Element, it is a pure substance consists of only one type of atom which all have a same numbers of the proton and their nuclei. So, example, copper. Copper is an element. It is made up of a copper atom only. It does not consist of any other kind of element. And another example, carbon is an element. It is made up of a carbon atom only. It is cannot mix with a copper. Cannot mix with a copper or any kind of a element which is not presented in the carbon. And helium gas. Helium is an atom and is made up of a helium atom only. Okay. So now another example, example number 1. Here the oxygen atoms only presented in a particular substances, and the oxygen atoms are bounded together, but there is still not only one type of oxygen. Okay, and another example, neon, only one type of atoms were presented. Element cannot separated by the physical and chemical method. Okay, so example, copper. Copper we cannot separate it a physical and chemical method. After separation of the mm, copper element, we will get a copper atom only. We will not get other elements. So there are 114 elements, we know it, and 92 are naturally occurring, while rest have been prepared artificial. So in element, iron, copper, helium. In a metal, iron, copper, calcium. Non-metal, carbon, silicon, phosphorus. Okay. So now in the metalloids, boron, arsenic, antimony. These are the metalloids. These are the metalloids. Let's move on to the compound. Compound, here there are chemical substances made up of two or more elements that are chemically bound together in a fixed ratios. Okay, two or more element. So H2SO4, hydrogen, sulfur, oxygen. These are three different type of elements are compound to form a compound. Okay, and the same element can also bond hydrogen and hydrogen to form a H2O, but it is not considered as a compound. We will say that two or more elements, okay, that chemically bound. Example, water, hydrogen and oxygen. nitrogen and hydrogen, carbon and oxygen, hydrogen and oxygen. These are the common example of a compounds. Compound cannot be separated by a physical method, but it can be separated by the chemical. Okay. So now example water. Water we cannot separate it with the help of physical method. Physical method in the sense with the help of hand, with the help of a filtration, we cannot separate. But we can separate it by the chemicals. Okay, we can add a other chemical. We can separate it a water molecule or hydrogen peroxide, carbon dioxide, and ammonia. Let's move on to the impure substance. Mixture of a container two or more different type of different and pure substances in any ratios. Okay. So now uh, impure mixture. In the impure mixture, two or more different impure substances. Water and salt. These are two different type of impure substance and different ratios. That is called a impure. Sodium chloride crystal, sodium chloride crystal and water. We will get a sodium chloride solution. Okay. Here you will get a sodium particles, hydrogen and chlorine, and finally we will get a NaCl. This NaCl is a impure substance. Let's move on to the another concept, mixture. In a mixture, homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. What do you mean by mixture? Mixture is a combination of a two or more element compound in any proportion and so that the component do not change their identity. Example, mixture of a two types which is called homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture. So combination of a two or more element. Here the example is called Na and Cl, sodium and chloride. If these two are combined to form a NaCl, so this NaCl if you are added into the water, it will become a NaCl solution. This NaCl solution does not change their identity even though if you are mixed with a water. Another example, NaOH plus HCl. These two are compound. So now after mixing the two compound, here we will get a NaCl plus H2O. So now NaCl and H2O, these are the new compound we got from a reactant. So they do not change their any kind of identity. The reactant side Na sodium is there, in the product side there is a sodium. In the reactant side there is a oxygen and hydrogen. In the product side there is a hydrogen and oxygen. Okay. So in the reactant side there is a chlorine and product side is a there is a chlorine. So they do not change their identity of the component. Homogeneous mixture and heterogeneous mixture, these are the two different classification of the mixture. So now homogeneous mixture. Homogeneous mixture, the mixture is component completely mixed with each other. Components are uniformly distributed and they have only one phase. Component in such a mixture cannot be seen under the microscope. So homogeneous mixture is completely mixed with each other. Example, the water and sugar. After mixing water and sugar, we will get a sugar solution. This sugar solution completely distributed throughout the half of the weaker. It cannot change their identity and cannot change their phases. Okay, it has only one phases. It has only one phases, and this sugar solution can't see in a powerful microscope because the sugar solution is completely dissolved in a water. Example: seawater, gasoline, mixture of air. Okay, these are called a homogeneous mixture. In air, we cannot see a carbon dioxide and nitrogen and oxygen and other gases. Here we are completely seeing the mixture of the carbon dioxide, nitrogen and oxygen. In a sea water also there is a mixture of potassium, sodium, minerals. Okay, these are elements we cannot separate it in a sea water. Let's move on to the heterogeneous mixture. In heterogeneous mixture, here the composition is not uniform throughout. It consists of two or more parts or phases which have a different composition. Mixture have a visible boundaries of the separation between the different constitute and they can be seen in a naked eye. Example: sand and water, chalk powder in a water. Okay, so now heterogeneous mixture is a composition of a not uniform throughout. There is a mixture of oil, water and sand. These cannot mix with each other even though after several hours. Okay, second, they have two or more parts or phases. Here we are completely observing that layers: oil layer, water layer and sand layer. Okay, so now we can easily observe boundaries between two solvents, oil and water, and another boundary which is called water and sand. Okay, so now we can easily observe a naked eye. Oh, example: sand and salt, sand and salt, and sand and salt, and chalk powder in a water. Yes, chalk powder in a water. These are called heterogeneous mixture. And mixture can be separated by the using a physical method. Okay, so now here these are the pulses are there. We can separate it with the help of a hand. Evaporation process. With the help of evaporation process, we can separate it. There is a mixture of the salt and water. Okay, another physical method, there is a separation of oil and water. Oil and water. Here there is atoms and molecules. Here two or more atoms combine to give a molecule. Two or more. Two or more atom combine to give a molecule. So now here oxygen and oxygen to form a molecule of oxygens. Another example, an atom of hydrogen, another atom of hydrogen to form molecules. So what do you mean by atom? Atoms are of the different elements. Here example: hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, copper, sodium. These are the atoms of the different elements. Okay. Thank you. See you on next video.